Sakamoto Taro was once a legendary assassin in the underworld, a name that sent chills down anyone's spine. Known for taking down multiple notorious gangs at the same time, he was a terror among criminals. However, everything changed when he met a seemingly ordinary girl who struck him with love at first sight. As a result, he gave up his assassin career to start a family. Years have passed, and now Sakamoto is a devoted father with a robust physique. One day, Shin, a former follower of Sakamoto, visited his small grocery store. After many years apart, Shin missed the mentor who was once an idol in the assassin world. Inside the store, a mischievous young boy appeared. The boy arrogantly demanded that Sakamoto give him a carton of milk if he managed to shoot the target. Sakamoto, already struggling with his business, was both frustrated and amused by the audacity of the boy. His wife, Aoi, noticed the boy visiting the store often but couldn't understand why. Fortunately, the boy's first shot missed, but when he tried again, he accidentally spilled ink all over a customer's pants. The angry customer immediately grabbed the boy by the collar, ready to teach him a lesson. Taro and Aoi stood by, unsure of how to intervene. Things got worse when the boy stepped on the customer's pants again. In his mind, Taro imagined himself solving the situation by stabbing the man's head with a pen. However, in front of his wife and child, he refrained from taking such extreme action. After the incident, the boy thanked the kind uncle for saving him, while the family tried to calm the boy down. At this point, Shin spoke up, praising Taro's technique, sticking a pen in the lower jaw and hitting the carotid artery. That's impressive. However, this was only a thought in Taro's mind. Shin, who could read people's thoughts due to his psychic abilities, was shocked and reminded Taro that he was Shin, a loyal subordinate. The two of them went outside to talk. Shin could hardly believe that the legendary assassin he once knew had retired and become a portly grocery store owner. Shin eagerly hoped Taro would return to the underworld, but Taro refused, saying he had a family to care for. This response left Shin frustrated, unable to understand why someone who had once been the fear of the criminal world would give it all up. Taro, uninterested in the conversation, focused on his bowl of noodles. Shin was taken aback by how much Taro had changed, from his personality to his eating habits. In the past, Taro only ate rations and never touched noodles. Shin was about to light a cigarette but was swiftly stopped by Taro, whose reflexes were faster than a bullet. Shin was stunned by how fast Taro had reacted. This confirmed that, despite his physical changes, Taro remained the ultimate assassin who could still take anyone down at any time. One day, a neighbor came to ask Sakamoto for help, which made Shin think that the man might be disguised as a regular person to hire Sakamoto for an assassination. However, the truth was far from it. The neighbor simply wanted Sakamoto to trim a few unnecessary branches from a tall tree. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Taro, and they often asked for his help. What stood out was that, despite being a legendary assassin, Sakamoto never hesitated to help others wholeheartedly. Even feeding the children was something he did. Once, when he saw two kids crying because they didn't have a ball to play with, he tore the ball in half and molded it back into its original shape, astonishing the entire neighborhood. Shin, who had been following from the beginning, felt disappointed to see his former hero now serving everyone in the neighborhood. He praised Sakamoto for hiding his identity so well but thought the situation was ridiculous. He decided to leave, but just as he stepped outside, one of the kids shot him in the head, causing Shin to get angry. The kid quickly ran off, and Shin couldn't catch up. Once outside by the car, Shin revealed his true feelings. Although it had been 5 years, Sakamoto still looked as cool as ever. Despite now being a chubby uncle, Shin wanted to team up with Taro for one more fight and seemed so excited that passers-by thought they were a couple making out in the car. Just then, Shin got a call from his boss, asking about convincing Sakamoto to return to the underworld. Knowing that Shin hadn't succeeded yet, the boss demanded that Taro be eliminated, as it was a rule in the assassin world. Once someone's hands are stained with blood, it's hard to escape, even for a legend like Sakamoto. Shin tried to defend Taro, saying he was just a fat guy now, not causing any trouble, but the boss refused. He stated that if Shin couldn't handle it, then he would be the one to die. After the call, Shin decided to take matters into his own hands. That evening, Shin went to buy some snacks to fuel himself before the battle. Although he cared for Taro, he had no choice but to follow the gang's rules. He couldn't sleep all night, constantly thinking about the past. Taro had always been a reliable support for Shin on missions, and Shin felt that if he didn't act, someone else would. Shin thought to himself that if he had to kill Taro, at least it would be at his own hands. The next day, when two kids were playing with poop, Shin entered the store. Aoi, Taro's wife, greeted him. One of the kids happily offered Shin some poop to eat, but he declined, as it was time to fight. Taro, sitting inside reading a newspaper, understood immediately and prepared himself. Shin announced that he had come to say goodbye and then pulled out a gun to shoot. Unfortunately, the shot was blocked by a candy that was spit out at the same speed, leaving Shin shocked and losing sight of Taro. Although Shin could read minds, Sakamoto was harder to predict. Taro quickly created a distraction and used a rubber band to shoot at Shin. The shots were powerful enough to force Shin to dodge. Before he could regain his stance, Taro appeared behind him and delivered the finishing blow. At that moment, Shin's mind became foggy, and he realized how foolish he was to try and assassinate a legend like Sakamoto. When Shin woke up, he found himself bandaged up. Aoi and her daughter were thrilled to see him awake and invited him downstairs for a meal. The whole situation was so sudden that Shin didn't know how to react. He had tried to kill Taro, yet they treated him so kindly. Shin suspected that there was poison in the food, but since he had been trained to have immunity, he thought he would be fine. However, the soup he drank was far worse than any poison. In a different sense, Aoi noticed Shin's reaction and chuckled, saying, "My husband used to be just like this." After all the years as an assassin, Taro had never been cared for like this. But one couldn't deny that Aoi's cooking was good enough to win over even a legendary assassin. Shin felt the warmth of the food, something he had never experienced before. He thought to himself that Sakamoto was trying to protect these small, everyday moments. After the meal, they went for a short walk, and then had to say goodbye. Shin was very grateful for the dinner and had made a decision for himself. He returned to meet his boss, disappointing him by revealing that he couldn't go through with the mission because of his past relationship with Taro. Shin bowed his head and begged for Taro's life, making the others laugh, as Shin had never been weak like this before. The boss asked why he was protecting Sakamoto, and Shin explained that Taro had a family. The others didn't care about that. An assassin breaking the rules and abandoning his responsibilities had to face the consequences. Shin offered to trade his life for Taro's, hoping they would spare him, and they agreed. Pointing a gun at someone you admire was a mistake, and Shin wanted to make it right. However, the boss was thinking of letting Shin die first, and then sending someone to kill Sakamoto. A battle broke out, and despite being retired, Taro couldn't sit idly by. He acted immediately. He hadn't used his old tools for a long time, but when his little brother was in trouble, he had to step in to save him. Back with Shin, he had already taken down many of the enemy's men. These were just novices in the assassin world, so it wasn't difficult for him to eliminate them. The main concern was the large numbers and modern weapons. Shin used his psychic ability to read the enemy's intentions, managing to stay alive. The enemies realized the issue and split up to take shots from different angles, making the situation even worse. Shin managed to grab some ammunition magazines. He tried to escape but was hit by a stray bullet in the leg. He thought his life was over. But then the legendary assassin, Taro, appeared. Taro used a stun gun to fry the enemies. And when he focused on the target he needed to kill, he went all in. Taro had already anticipated this. And after eliminating the young thug, he had installed a bug in the gun to listen in on their plans. Shin was freed and thought to himself that no matter what, he would leave now. Taro, who had taken a liking to Shin, threw him an apron and invited him to work at his restaurant. Although the pay wasn't much, it was enough to live on. Everything happened so fast that Shin didn't know what to think. A few days later, Shin started getting used to his new job. Taro needed someone to help because he was too busy eating noodles. Hana and Aoi liked Shin, and everything went smoothly. Shin now used his psychic ability to assist customers. The old lady even praised him, saying he was so talented that he could guess what people wanted to buy. The young boy, who often visited the shop, invited Shin's brother to hang out. Shin turned him down, still working, and when asked about his previous job, he almost revealed everything. but Taro scared him into silence. A few days later, Shin had fully adapted to working at the grocery store. Everything was neatly organized and easy to find. Thanks to his efforts, he even shared stories of Sakamoto's incredible action-packed feats from the day before. Despite being retired, Sakamoto remained the strongest, capable of taking down an entire gang with a single strike. Shin's comments, however, didn't go unnoticed. Sakamoto's wife overheard and furiously confronted her husband. "You're not thinking of going back to being an assassin, are you?" she demanded. Startled, Taro quickly denied it. Feigning innocence, Shin chimed in, asking about the gang from the other day. "Didn't you kill them all anyway?" Sakamoto casually replied, "I can't guarantee they're dead. Maybe just crippled. Who knows?" His wife, unimpressed, sternly reminded him of their family rules. If Taro ever violated them, she'd file for divorce without hesitation, a threat that even the legendary assassin couldn't ignore. It was his one true weakness. And Shin, ever curious, tried to ask what those rules were. But before he could finish, Sakamoto gave him a mental smack for being stupid. Later, the duo ventured to Chinatown to pick up supplies. Shin was amazed by the size of the area and asked why they had to shop there of all places. Sakamoto presented a rare delicacy, steamed buns. Baked fresh daily, with only 50 made each day. "These will make Aoi and the kid happy," he said, smiling. Shin couldn't help but admire how much Sakamoto loved his family. Still curious about the family rules, he prodded again, only for something unexpected to happen. A random object fell from above, hitting Sakamoto. Though unharmed himself, the precious steamed buns were crushed. Shin tried to brush the dust off, thinking they could still eat them. But the real culprit, a young woman, had landed from the rooftop above. She was being pursued and, cornered by her attackers, decided to fight back. Skilled in martial arts, she declared, "No way I'm letting you idiots catch me." Her confidence only escalated the chaos. Shin turned to Sakamoto for advice. Helping her would definitely anger Aoi. But ignoring the situation didn't sit right either. As the fight began, the woman displayed remarkable skill. Using Tai Chi techniques to take down multiple attackers, she effortlessly dodged and countered every move. But when one thug managed to grab her from behind, things looked grim. The gang, angry at their losses, decided to escalate. Armed with knives, they were ready to do serious harm. But Sakamoto stepped in, breaking a knife in half with a mere pinch and knocking a man out cold with a single punch. Inspired, Shin joined the fray, helping the woman break free and take down the remaining thugs. Just as the dust settled, more enemies appeared, forcing the three to flee. Sakamoto grabbed the woman and carried her rooftop to rooftop with incredible speed, leaving their pursuers in the dust. Back at the gang's hideout, the boss, an old Chinatown crime lord, fumed over the woman's escape. He berated his lackeys until one of them was suddenly killed by a mysterious figure. Enter Bako and Sun Hee. Infamous assassin siblings feared even by the boss himself. When informed of the situation, they agreed to retrieve the key the woman carried, an object that would grant control over the black market. As long as they were paid well, they didn't care who stood in their way. Meanwhile, Sakamoto, Shin, and the woman were catching their breath. Shin was shocked to learn she was the daughter of a legendary mafia family, one of the infamous 6 clans. When asked why the gang was after her, she revealed a key, a token her family had entrusted her with. It opened a secret treasury filled with unimaginable wealth. Her parents had sacrificed everything to protect it, but they were ultimately murdered. Shin suggested she just get rid of the key to avoid more trouble. But the woman exploded in anger. "My parents died to protect this," she shouted. Throwing it away would make their deaths meaningless. That night, she told herself she had to survive. No matter what, only then could she face her parents, who were watching over her from above. The incident wasn't related to them, so she bid them farewell. Shin tried to follow her, but his comrades held him back. The legendary assassin asked her if someone with diabetes could still make dumplings. She didn't understand but replied that her father had taught her how. Shin suddenly had a bad feeling and warned Mr. Sakamoto not to get too deeply involved. But Sakamoto had already decided to skip grocery shopping to save this girl. In return, she had to make dumplings as good as her father's to repay him, a condition that left her stunned. Just then, 2 assassins burst in and sent Sakamoto flying 100 meters away. showcasing terrifying strength. Left with no choice, the girl stood her ground to fight. She quickly recognized the pair as infamous twin assassins who always got their target. Though their fees were exorbitant, they talked about morality, but in reality, Bako and Sun Hee were serial killers who played with people's lives for amusement. In their downtime, they even used their victims' heads to paint grotesque pictures, a sickening hobby. Hearing this, Shin charged forward to fight. His punches were earnest but lacked technique. The twin mocked him, thinking he was enraged over a teammate's death. Shin found it amusing that they didn't know about the legendary assassin standing before them, true amateurs. Just as they targeted the girl, Taro returned, smashing the ground with a single punch that cracked the floor. But even that wasn't enough to take them down. Sun Hee asked who he was, but Taro didn't bother to answer. The twins dismissed the damage as the fault of the old building and prepared for round 2. Bako demanded Taro's destruction, while Sun Hee demanded the girl hand over her keepsake key. She refused, saying it was her parents' final gift and she'd rather die than give it up. Hearing this, the twins revealed her father had said the same thing before they killed him. Furious, she lunged at them, but Sakamoto pulled her back. Knowing it was a provocation, Sun Hee launched throwing knives. But Taro blocked them effortlessly. He stated no one had the right to decide what was important to others. It was a lesson he learned from his wife. Years ago, during their courtship, Taro had returned from a mission drenched in blood. His wife, horrified by his assassin lifestyle, rejected his gifts, saying she couldn't accept anything tainted by death. She warned him, if he continued this path, he could forget about marrying her. Then, she jumped off a ledge to prove her point. Terrified, Taro dove after her, saving her just in time. She laughed, saying the fall was higher than she expected, leaving the killer both flustered and powerless. She had done it out of love, to help him understand how precious life was, not just his but the lives of those left behind. From that moment on, Taro vowed never to kill again, dedicating himself to saving lives as atonement. Reading this flashback brought tears to Shin's eyes, and Sakamoto reminded him to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Just then, the twins attacked again. They used weapons, so Taro improvised with kitchen utensils. Shin helped when he could, but Taro did most of the heavy lifting. Realizing their opponents had some skill, the twins began coordinating attacks. Leveraging their sibling bond, they unleashed their ultimate move. But Taro dodged every strike, even with cramped muscles from exertion. The twins were stunned. No one had ever evaded their hell slash before. As they prepared to strike again, a paw came hurtling through the air, smashing into one twin's head. The other, distracted, had his weapon shattered by a frying pan. Taro, slightly sore from using such heavy objects, made quick work of them. Sun Hee, in desperation, turned his attention to the girl. But Shin anticipated this, choking him out instantly. Meanwhile, Taro finished the fight by slamming a refrigerator onto Bako. With the twins defeated, the girl asked, "What kind of people are you?" Learning they were just regular employees, she burst out laughing and thanked them profusely. The three returned the twins to their boss, who was shocked his men couldn't stop them. The girl, still angry, held a knife to his throat but decided not to kill him, out of respect for Sakamoto. Instead, she left him trembling in fear. It felt like justice was finally served for her parents. Seeing that it might not be enough, Shin wanted to throw in a few more punches. But Taro swiftly put an end to that idea with a sharp warning look. He reminded Shin to stop meddling in things that didn't concern him. Thu Duong, however, decided this was enough revenge and invited the two of them to check out the storage room. Inside, they found a treasure trove, but the most valuable item was a jar of wine left by her father. It turned out that every generation of the family had preserved an item deemed their greatest treasure in this room. For Thu Duong's father, it was this wine, which he had saved for the day he could share a drink with his daughter when she was old enough. Reading her father's heartfelt note, she couldn't hold back her tears. In honor of her father and as a way to thank the two of them for their help, she opened the jar and offered them a drink. The messy dumplings they had earlier became their impromptu snacks, a symbol of their newfound friendship. The next day, life returned to normal, or so Shin thought. He was shocked to see Thu Duong working at the shop. Now officially employed, she declared she would carry on the family tradition by making authentic dumplings for a living. When Shin brought up the treasure trove, asking what she planned to do with all that wealth, she laughed and called him an idiot. Who in their right mind would sell a family heirloom for money? From now on, she said, they were all part of the Sakamoto family, bound by its rules. The first rule: no killing. Anyone who broke it would have to answer to the boss himself. Shin, hearing the contradiction in that statement, raised an eyebrow. But Taro? He didn't care in the slightest. After being hired, Fu Duong continuously arrived late, which annoyed Shin greatly. Despite being co-workers, Shin felt like he was the one doing all the work in the shop. Fu Duong casually brushed it off, saying being late wasn't a big deal. Even though she was over 2 hours late, her excuses sounded more like desperate justifications. She even stored laundry detergent in the fridge alongside soda, absolutely absurd. Her other actions followed the same careless pattern, assuming customers would figure everything out on their own. Shin figured she had probably never worked anywhere before. Fu Duong claimed she had, but it was only helping her father with his work. Shin couldn't take it anymore and begged Sakamoto to fire her before she ruined the peaceful atmosphere of the shop. Fu Duong sarcastically thought that their peaceful atmosphere was already questionable, considering one of them was an ex-gangster and the other two were retired hitmen. Taro stepped in, telling Shin to calm down. This stunned the two younger workers, as they weren't used to Taro cracking jokes. Normally, Sakamoto wasn't one to laugh or joke either, so Shin was understandably shocked to see this side of him after years of following him around. The surprise didn't stop there. Another Sakamoto suddenly entered the shop. This one was completely silent and cold, and it was clear this was the real deal. A showdown between the two Sakamotos began within seconds, but neither could gain the upper hand. The clone's abilities were extraordinary, as Shin realized it could transform a knife into a gun mid-strike. The real Sakamoto greeted the intruder, calling him Nagumo. The man complimented Taro on still being as strong as ever. Shin and Fu Duong were completely confused, especially when Nagumo shape-shifted effortlessly. Shin tried reading his mind but couldn't, recognizing Nagumo as a formidable opponent despite his playful demeanor. After laughing at the younger workers for falling for his earlier tricks, Nagumo was met with deserved retribution as they retaliated. When Shin asked who Nagumo was, he introduced himself as a supermarket employee. The younger duo almost believed him until they realized there wasn't even a supermarket nearby. Taro clarified that Nagumo was actually a retired assassin from the same era as him. Nagumo, now 27, joked about his age, but the younger pair weren't amused and hit him again for his tall tales. Nagumo revealed the real reason for his visit. A bounty of 1 billion yen had been placed on Sakamoto's head. Fu Duong dismissed it as another lie, but Nagumo assured them it was true, explaining that the assassin community had officially made their move. Before the group could process this, a pizza delivery interrupted them. However, Shin quickly read the mind of the delivery man and uncovered his murderous intent. He was an assassin aiming to kill Sakamoto. Unfazed, Sakamoto ignored the assassin, which only enraged him. In a flash, Nagumo subdued the attacker by choking him, but Sakamoto stopped him before he could finish the job. Sakamoto was determined to handle this bloodlessly, a notion the assassin mocked, questioning Sakamoto's confidence, as even his own organization might be tempted by the massive bounty. Nagumo reflected on their past missions, calling them fun memories. Before leaving, Taro asked why Nagumo was still trying to kill him. Nagumo claimed he was just following orders, hinting that Sakamoto's retirement hadn't gone unnoticed due to his recent involvement with Fu Duong. Nagumo then carried the subdued assassin out of the store, leaving Shin wondering whether he was a friend or foe, as Fu Duong considered fleeing the country to escape danger. The assassin community was seen monitoring the shop. They underestimated Sakamoto, mocking his weight and his decision to retire 5 years ago. However, Sakamoto abruptly looked into a hidden camera and declared that if they continued pursuing him, they would face hell. This sent shockwaves through the group, who hadn't realized he was aware of the surveillance all along. Later that evening, Shin expressed concern about more assassins posing as delivery workers. Sakamoto dismissed the worry, saying it was impossible to predict who the enemy might be. What mattered most was staying prepared for the worst. The daughter and wife then joined the conversation, excitedly talking about the trip planned for the next day. Little Hannah had been eagerly awaiting this day. reminding her father of his promise to take her to the amusement park. Although he knew it might be dangerous. The next morning, the entire family still went to Sugar Park. They started with some adventurous rides, which made Shin nervous, while the wife and daughter thoroughly enjoyed themselves. Even Akira endured the discomfort to avoid ruining the cheerful atmosphere. Hana excitedly shared with Akira about a place she really wanted to visit. One that had a mascot that looked adorably goofy, since it had been a while since they had such an outing. Akira wanted to make the most of it. Hearing this, Shin and Sakamoto broke into a cold sweat, realizing how busy they'd be. Shin reminded his partner of their task for the day, to protect the family from any threats so they could enjoy themselves without worry. Akira, skeptical, remarked how difficult it would be to identify assassins in such a crowded place. Shin then explained his psychic ability to read people's thoughts within a 30-meter radius. If anyone emitted killing intent, he would alert Akira to take them down together. Akira grumbled, suspecting Shin had probably read her mind before. Suddenly, Shin notified Taro about an enemy approaching. Disguised as a janitor, Akira criticized Taro for being too complacent by bringing his family to the park. Meanwhile, Akira distracted the mother and daughter while Taro stealthily incapacitated the enemy by stabbing him with a pen in a swift, precise move. The wife didn't notice the commotion, but Akira was impressed by Taro's skill, noting he avoided vital organs to keep the target alive. From afar, Tatsu scoffed at his comrade's failure, cautious about his next move. He had gathered intelligence on Taro, dismissing him as merely an overindulgent father. He also found Shin annoying but had already devised a strategy to counter Shin's psychic ability. Simply avoid harboring any intent to kill. Tatsu effortlessly evaded the duo and got close to Sakamoto. Meanwhile, Hana wanted to ride the roller coaster, something her indulgent father hated due to his weight, which made the ride uncomfortable. Akira asked Shin why he chose to sit at the back, and he explained it was to observe the surroundings more effectively. Although he couldn't sense any immediate danger, Akira's sharp observation skills identified a suspicious man ahead. Realizing he'd been discovered, Tatsu remained calm, forcing Shin to warn Taro of the impending threat. Tatsu attacked, shooting at Taro's face, but Taro's bulletproof glasses saved him. Since everyone was strapped in, mobility was limited. Shin managed to break the restraints and leapt out, leaving Akira panicking as the roller coaster sped down the track. Shin timed his jump perfectly, landing on the ride's next loop to confront Tatsu. Despite being pulled into the chaos, Tatsu remained composed, and the two engaged in a high-stakes battle while evading the moving ride. Both were seasoned fighters, unfazed by the dangerous heights. Tatsu declared he would work overtime on Sakamoto's day off, impressing Shin with his confidence. However, Tatsu avoided emitting killing intent, preventing Shin from fully predicting his moves. During their fight, Tatsu's poisoned weapon grazed Shin, temporarily blinding him. Tatsu mocked Shin, assuming his loss of vision made him vulnerable. But Shin laughed, stating that Taro's fear of death wasn't a weakness, it was proof of his strength. Protecting his family gave him unparalleled resolve. This determination frustrated Tatsu, who couldn't understand it. Despite his temporary blindness, Shin managed to overpower Tatsu in a surprising counterattack. Their fight escalated, but Shin cleverly used his psychic ability to read Hana's thoughts, leading the battle to a nearby performance stage. There, he donned a rabbit costume, Hana's favorite, and used it to his advantage. Meanwhile, Taro watched from above, strategically visualizing his own combat moves, which Shin picked up through telepathy. By syncing their thoughts, Shin executed a seamless combination of attacks, baffling Tatsu, who couldn't comprehend how a blind man was landing such precise hits. The audience erupted in cheers, enthusiastically rooting for the bunny. The opponent, after missing countless attacks, began to lose his composure. In terms of raw strength, Shin clearly had the upper hand. Even the wife praised one of his punches, commenting on its impressive power, then teasing her daughter by saying, "Look, your dad is completely captivated." In reality, Sakamoto was deeply focused, carefully planning and providing real-time guidance to Shin, who trusted him completely and followed every instruction. This trust allowed Shin to dominate the fight. However, Tatsu proved to be incredibly tough, enduring punch after punch while still standing strong. After a while, Tatsu realized it wasn't that the poison had lost its effect, it was that his every move was being completely read. Noticing Shin's aura shift suddenly, Tatsu asked, "What's going on here?" Attempting one desperate slash, he managed to expose Shin's still closed eyes and was left utterly shocked. The culmination of his reckless move? A devastating double-footed kick from Shin, ending the fight decisively. The audience, thinking this was all part of a choreographed performance, showered them with applause and praise for such an incredible show. Taro also gave his little brother a thumbs up, leaving Shin glowing with joy. Poor Diabetes was still riding the roller coaster while everything else had already gone down, a truly absurd sight. She screamed her lungs out, calling for Shin, but no one responded. Nearby, another pair of skilled assassins was targeting Sakamoto. The duo consisted of Obiguro, a sharp-tongued woman, and the playful Boiled. Boiled scolded Obiguro for almost stepping on a trail of ants, remarking that even as assassins, they should respect life, even that of insects. Despite her grumbling, Obiguro secretly admired Boiled's principles, as he refused to harm anyone other than his target. Meanwhile, after capturing Tatsu, the cute girl tending to Shin's eyes applied some drops, not just eye medicine but also an antidote, which caused some irritation. Shin, bothered by the discomfort, tried to flee, but Taro interrogated Tatsu about who had hired him. Tatsu retorted, asking if confessing would mean his release. Diabetes then casually picked up his poison-coated knife and stabbed him, threatening to dump all the antidote unless he spoke up. Shocked, Shin protested since he still needed the antidote for his other eye. Cornered, Tatsu revealed he was working for a group called Dandenkai, basically a mafia organization. The psychic teased him for calling others cowards earlier, yet caving under Diabetes' threats. Tatsu claimed to be just a temp worker and begged for mercy. When asked if he was registered with the Assassin's Guild, he proudly confirmed it. Curious, the girl asked about the guild, prompting Shin to show his assassin ID. He explained the guild managed professional assassins and had about 400 active members in Japan. Diabetes laughed at how gloomy the ID photo looked, saying it seemed like Shin was forced into the job. Tatsu, still tied up, asked Sakamoto if he had once belonged to the order. Even Shin was unaware, dismissing it as an urban legend. Just then, Hana and her mother arrived. Hana, impressed by the earlier fight, recognized Tatsu as the bad guy they defeated. She innocently asked what was happening, prompting Shin to cleverly claim it was all part of a superhero skit, and they weren't actually tying anyone up. With that, the family moved on to enjoy lunch prepared by Hana. Shin confiscated Tatsu's weapon and warned him to leave them alone. Tatsu thought he'd be killed, but the psychic clarified they were just there to relax, not to kill anyone. Hana even ran over to praise the performance earlier, putting a bandage on Tatsu's wounds. Bewildered by the bizarre family dynamic, Tatsu decided to make the most of being spared. While eating, Shin felt unwell, suspecting lingering effects of the poison. It had apparently affected his brain, rendering him unable to read minds anymore. Diabetes grew concerned, warning that losing this ability made things far riskier. She advised the group to call it a day. Just as they were pondering, the wife returned, suspiciously asking if they were hiding something from her, startling the trio. In the restroom, Tatsu sighed in relief but was ambushed by Boiled and Obiguro. Obiguro pinned him down, demanding to know where he thought he was going. He begged her to get off, complaining about her weight, only to receive a scolding about inappropriate comments. When asked why they were there, the pair replied they had unfinished business to take care of. The scene felt like parents scolding a child over homework. Obiguro mockingly told Tatsu to be grateful since failure would have earned him a harsher punishment. She admitted her curiosity about meeting the legendary assassin Sakamoto, whom she hadn't encountered before. Boiled, however, was familiar with him, even bearing a scar on his face, though he clarified it wasn't from Taro. He revealed it came from slipping and falling headfirst, a story he partially blamed on Sakamoto. Today, he intended to settle that score. Despite their goofy antics, the duo had once killed over 100 people in a single battle, making them one of Dandenkai's deadliest teams. Back at the family's table, the wife wondered if she hadn't packed enough food, assuming it caused the group's odd behavior. Hana, teary-eyed, asked if her dad hated amusement parks. Shin and Diabetes quickly reassured her, saying they loved the rides. Hearing this, Ao suggested going for a few more rounds. While Hana and her mother headed off, Shin and the psychic stayed alert, knowing they had to be extra cautious now that Shin had lost his mind-reading ability. By evening, no assassins had shown up, likely deterred by the crowded environment. However, their next destination, a haunted house, was the perfect setting for an ambush. Leaving the trio horrified, Diabetes, terrified of such places, was already useless. She clung to her herbal remedy, trying to calm herself. As the family ventured into the haunted house, they unknowingly walked straight into Boiled's sights. The trio encounters more chilling moments when Diabetica gets spooked out of her mind, proving why this haunted house is known as the scariest in Japan. Everything inside is meticulously designed to terrify. Seeing the mother and daughter having fun reassures Shin. Just then, an attacker appears, and Sakamoto springs into action, unleashing a flurry of punches that leave the opponent unconscious on the spot. Even the daughter is surprised that the zombie-like attacker froze in place. And the younger siblings are in disbelief, marveling at Sakamoto's overwhelming power. However, this attacker turns out to be a mere rookie, and they realize the enemy might not pose too much of a challenge. But their skirmish doesn't go unnoticed. Obiguro watches the entire scene through security footage and acknowledges Sakamoto's incredible speed, remarking that she's curious how he'd perform if he fought seriously. Another former ally warns her to stay out of it, as Sakamoto is his prey. Obiguro agrees to let him handle Sakamoto while she deals with the rest of the group. Obiguro's mention of their past friendship angers Sakamoto. He denies they were ever friends, explaining they simply came from the same assassin training facility. A flashback shows a younger Sakamoto, already a prodigy at 14, training alongside Boiled, who was 15 but inferior in every aspect. Boiled admired Sakamoto after he defeated Boiled's ally and sought to become his companion. Despite their contrasting personalities, they became an inseparable duo, like two sides of the same coin. One Valentine's Day, while assassins usually had no festivities, Boiled was jealous when he saw girls swooning over Sakamoto, giving him chocolates. Even Sakamoto's locker was filled with gifts. Nagumo, their dashing and witty colleague, was even more popular. Boiled, hoping to impress, was dismissed by Sakamoto as an irrelevant acquaintance. This left Boiled bitter, especially after an embarrassing moment where a girl accidentally knocked him over. He's been harboring resentment ever since. Back in the present, as the trio continues to battle assassins disguised as ghosts, Diabetica, exhausted, wants to leave. Hana, however, is brimming with excitement, eager to see what happens next. Shin praises her courage, likening her to Sakamoto. Diabetica, claiming her family's lucky elixir will keep her going, chugs some alcohol and fearlessly opens a door filled with assassins. Sakamoto swiftly defeats them, but Boiled arrives and forces him into another room for a one-on-one duel. Boiled mocks Sakamoto, asking if he remembers him. Sakamoto coldly replies that he doesn't and vows to make Boiled regret targeting his family. The fight escalates as Boiled uses explosive candies, showing that he's no pushover. Meanwhile, Shin rushes to protect the mother and daughter, only to find Obiguro standing over them. She hasn't harmed them, merely put them to sleep. Disappointed that Shin isn't entertaining, Obiguro mocks him, only to be met with a drunken flying kick from Diabetica, who proudly declares she'll show her family's drunken boxing style. The intense battles continue on both fronts. Despite Boiled's past grievances, Sakamoto remains focused on protecting his loved ones. The situation grows more dire as Boiled demonstrates enhanced physical strength, his punches echoing through the halls. Back in the other fight, Obiguro, amused by Diabetica's antics, eventually overpowers her without serious harm, showing that she's merely toying with them. Shin, left frustrated, feels helpless as he struggles to keep everyone safe amidst the chaos. Out of boredom, Obiguro demanded that Thu Duong fight seriously, knowing she was still holding back her true skills. The rules were simple: if she couldn't land a hit within the given time, Shin would meet his end. Meanwhile, Shin was being terrorized by a group wielding chainsaws, threatening to cut him into pieces, leaving him utterly horrified. He thought his companion would save him, but to his surprise, she burst into tears and apologized, saying she couldn't do anything. Back to Sakamoto, who was lying battered on the ground. Boiled believed that retiring 5 years ago had greatly weakened him. The gap in strength between them was immense. With 2 tools, a candy bomb and a power-boosted hand, Boiled was confident he could strike from any angle. These words suddenly triggered a memory for the legendary assassin Dad, reminding him of the time his former friend introduced him to those weapons. The two exchanged blows, but Boiled still had the upper hand. Sakamoto was being thoroughly beaten, fueling his opponent's frustration. In the past, Sakamoto could complete any mission, but now, he couldn't even protect his family. Boiled launched a final strike straight to his face, sending him flying. Thinking it was over, Boiled bid farewell, only to suddenly feel a chilling wave of killing intent that made his blood freeze. Sakamoto calmly recited the precise composition of the candy bombs, something he would usually ignore. But since his memory had been jogged this far, he remembered everything. The most shocking part? The once plump legendary assassin had seemingly reverted to his prime. From this point on, the real fight was about to begin. What had happened earlier was just a warm-up.